The year is 1944. The European theater of World War II is locked in a brutal, grinding stalemate. The Allied forces have successfully breached Normandy, but moving millions of men and millions of tons of steel across a continent is a logistical nightmare. The German war machine, despite its losses, is still a terrifyingly efficient algorithm of destruction. But what if you could introduce a virus into that algorithm? What if you could defeat an empire not by overpowering its hardware, but by completely hacking its software? This is the unbelievable story of the 23rd Headquarters Special Troops, a top-secret unit better known as the Ghost Army. They were not hardened killers. They were artists, architects, actors, and sound engineers recruited from places like the Pratt Institute and Cooper Union in New York. Their mission was unprecedented in modern military history: to weaponize human perception and feed the Nazi intelligence network so much corrupted data that the entire German strategic map would crash. To understand how they pulled off this massive system override, we have to look at the three distinct divisions of the Ghost Army, each designed to manipulate a different sensory input of the German military. The first branch was the 603rd Camouflage Engineers. Their weapon of choice was visual deception. The United States military essentially built the world's largest traveling theater company. They deployed massive inflatable M4 Sherman tanks, artillery pieces, and jeeps made of cheap rubber and canvas. From the ground, they looked like oversized pool toys. But to a German reconnaissance pilot flying at 10,000 feet, a cluster of these inflatables cast the exact same shadows as a fully armored division. But the Ghost Army knew that a visual glitch would be instantly recognized if the surrounding data didn't match. If you have a massive tank division, you need massive infrastructure. So the 603rd didn't just inflate balloons, they meticulously engineered a fake reality. They drove real bulldozers over the terrain to create deep, overlapping tank treads leading up to the rubber decoys, ensuring the tracks looked perfectly authentic to aerial cameras. They set up sprawling, fake supply depots. They hung thousands of empty uniforms on laundry lines to simulate a massive troop presence. They even built fake wooden airplanes that looked perfectly real from above. They were effectively rendering a high-fidelity 3D environment in the real world, specifically designed to be captured by German lenses. But visual data was only one piece of the puzzle. The German intelligence network relied heavily on acoustic tracking. To hack this, the Ghost Army deployed the 3132 Signal Service Company, the pioneers of sonic warfare. Working with engineers from Bell Labs, they took the most advanced audio recording technology of the era, the wire recorder, and turned it into a weapon of mass deception. These engineers went to real armored training grounds in the United States and recorded the deafening sounds of tanks rumbling over cobblestones, heavy artillery firing, and officers screaming orders. They collected a massive audio library of warfare. On the battlefields of Europe, they mounted giant 500-pound speakers onto the backs of half-tracks. Like modern DJs, they would mix these audio tracks on the fly, adjusting the equalization to account for humidity, wind direction, and terrain. In the dead of night, they would blast the sounds of a massive armored column moving into position. The sound could be heard from 15 miles away. German units, terrified by the acoustic signature of thousands of approaching tanks, would hunker down in their bunkers or retreat from perfectly defensible positions, completely unaware that they were running away from a mixtape. The visual and sonic illusions were masterpieces, but the most sophisticated hack was executed by the Signal Company Special, the cyber warfare unit of the 1940s. Before the internet, the ultimate information network was the radio. Armies communicated via Morse code, and German intelligence had dedicated listening posts specifically designed to track American radio traffic. Every Morse code operator has a unique rhythm and timing when tapping the key, a digital fingerprint known in the military as a fist. The Germans kept detailed files on the fists of American operators, allowing them to track the movements of specific divisions just by listening to the rhythm of the code. The Ghost Army's radio operators were the ultimate social engineers. They spent hours listening to the specific operators of real American divisions, practicing until they could perfectly mimic their exact typing rhythms. When a real American division needed to secretly relocate, they would maintain absolute radio silence. The Ghost Army would immediately step in, broadcasting from the division's old location. They would perfectly mimic the fists of the departed operators, sending a flood of fake messages, bogus orders, and routine chatter. The German intelligence officers sitting in their listening posts were capturing the data, verifying the digital signatures, and confirming that the American division had not moved. The system was functioning perfectly, but the data was entirely malicious. The Germans were making strategic decisions based on a phantom reality. This tri-layered deception culminated in March 1945 during Operation Viersen. The Allies needed to cross the Rhine River, the final major natural barrier into Germany. The Ninth Army was tasked with the crossing, but the German defenses on the opposite bank were heavily fortified. A direct assault would result in thousands of casualties. The Ghost Army was called in to perform their magnum opus. Their objective was to convince the German High Command that the Ninth Army was going to cross the river 10 miles to the south, near the town of Viersen. Just over 1,000 men of the Ghost Army set up a massive synchronized illusion to simulate 2 full armored divisions, representing nearly 40,000 soldiers. They inflated hundreds of rubber tanks along the southern riverbank. They blasted the sounds of heavy bridge construction and truck convoys through their massive speakers all night long. Their radio operators flooded the airwaves with fake tactical communications. They even deployed physical actors. Soldiers wearing the insignia of high-ranking generals from the fake divisions were sent into local French towns to get drunk in bars and loudly discuss their impending attack on Viersen, knowing perfectly well that German spies were listening. The German algorithm processed all this data. The aerial photographs, the radio intercepts, the acoustic reports, and the spy chatter all pointed to one undeniable conclusion: a massive assault was coming at Viersen. The German command panicked. They shifted their panzer divisions, their artillery, and their infantry away from the actual crossing point and concentrated all their firepower on the Ghost Army. They bombarded empty forests and rubber balloons with heavy artillery. Meanwhile, 10 miles to the north, the real American Ninth Army crossed the Rhine River with almost zero resistance. The Ghost Army had successfully manipulated the entire defensive grid of the German military. Throughout their deployment in Europe, this unit of artists and engineers conducted 21 major deception operations. They routinely operated on the extreme front lines, armed only with rubber tanks and record players, drawing enemy fire away from real soldiers. It is estimated that their illusions saved the lives of between 15,000 and 30,000 American soldiers. They proved that a perfectly executed system spoof could be more destructive than a bombing raid. Yet when the war ended, their achievements were immediately buried. The technology and tactics they developed were considered so dangerous and so revolutionary that the Pentagon classified the entire unit. The men of the Ghost Army returned to civilian life. Bill Blass became a world-famous fashion designer. Ellsworth Kelly became a renowned painter. For 50 years, they were forbidden from telling anyone, even their own families, what they had actually done during the war. They were the ultimate phantom protocol. It wasn't until 1996 that the government finally declassified their records, revealing the truth. The Ghost Army remains one of the most incredible anomalies in military history. They didn't win their battles by destroying the enemy's hardware. They won by hacking the human interface, proving that in any complex system, the most vulnerable component is always the mind interpreting the data.